What, you have a podcast?
Really?
Because we don't have a country
It's
anymore.
just time for a theocratic monarchy. King Trump, for life. Let's go.
I'm going to be a dictator. I said that.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Thursday, August 8th, 2024. A couple things happened yesterday or last night that I want to get into. The first of which is kind of crazy. I do want to talk about Trump and his latest, or I guess his first salvo against Governor Tim Walz, new vice presidential running mate of Kamala Harris. As for my opinions on him, I haven't seen anything I don't like. He's not a socialist. Obviously, he's a Democrat. He runs very much on the we want to reform things, not a revolution. Okay, he's pro-democracy. He's got my vote. I'm not really worried about that. But everything else is like a complete step in the right direction. Everything I've seen of him, everything he seems to promote is very common sense, yes. For example, and even some things I didn't know about or didn't think about because I'm a white guy and I didn't have any sisters growing up. And when it comes to issues like menstruation kind of a deal, my mom had a surgery when I was still a toddler that removed all her baby making parts. So she didn't have that. You know, I had no interaction within the household at all. And I didn't date for a long time. Like my first kiss, I was 21. So I had zero information on this other than what they tell you in class in Southern California and like sex ed. And even that is very, very geared more towards reproduction, the actual act of it, and how not to get an STD rather than, you know, just the normal cycle of what a woman goes through. So I had nothing. So in case you didn't know, Tim Walz, the biggest attack I've seen against him is that he passed a bill while governor of Minnesota to put menstruation products, tampons, pads, those kinds of things in boys' and girls' bathrooms throughout the state for free. Obviously, the girls' side makes sense. The boys, I was a little like, what's the thought process there? But it turns out this is where him being a former school teacher and coach made sense, made practical sense. Like there's a practical reason for it. There are two main reasons I've heard that this totally makes sense to have female menstruation products in a boy's bathroom. One, very obvious, poverty sucks. And unfortunately, a lot of these products are not free to the public. I personally think they should be. It kind of makes sense for a public good standpoint and also just a sanitation standpoint. You would think, hey, this is something people need and they're going to need it whether they want to or not. Unfortunately, it's a part of life for women in the entire world. Why these aren't free is crazy to me, especially since if you're a boy and you're in high school, I guarantee you go to the nurse's office in at least 40 of the 50 states. Obviously, there are some red states that are crazy. But if you go to most of them, if you go to the nurse's office or you go to your coach and you're like, hey, man, I think I might need a condom. Like, they're going to give them out like candy. Like, that's totally fine. But if you're a girl and you say, I need a pad or something, it's like, well, you know, we'll send you home. What the fuck? Like, seriously. But anyway, so the reasons of, the number one reason is, you know, boys have sisters. And if you're in poverty and you know that, you know, you can't afford this shit, boys have sisters and boys have moms. And maybe they pocket a few of them and they take them home and they make sure that their family is sanitary and taken care of. That's a completely good reason for that to be there. The second reason wasn't as obvious. This is where him being a coach actually comes into play. And this is, you know, some schools don't have huge, giant facilities. You know, some schools don't have special locker rooms built for the visiting team and the home team and all that stuff. They just have what they have. And unfortunately, that means that the home team, if you're a girls' soccer team, you're visiting. So the girls' soccer team, the home team, goes ahead and gets their normal girls' locker room. there's no reason to have two girls' locker rooms at most schools. So they put those girls in a boys' locker room, where obviously things like sanitation products are not going to be in. So that's there. And I just found that very practical. Like, oh yeah, I wouldn't think of that. That's outside my bubble. That's totally not there for me. Cool. And the right is, of course, against that. They're ignoring the practical reasons for it. They're saying that he put all these products into the boys' bathroom for transgenderism and all that BS. Now, whatever your views on transgender, and I don't know Walz's view. For all I know, he was thinking of transgender people, and he was like, no, this is cool. I haven't looked into it. I just saw that online, there are a lot of women who say these things make sense. They make sense for them to be there. It's a practical thing. It's a humane thing. It's an equality thing. It's fine. And it doesn't hurt anybody. It really doesn't. Costs a few extra dollars. That's it. And again, if you're a boy and you think about it, like, condoms were never difficult for me to get at any point. I could ask any man in a position of authority at a school, and I guarantee you I would have had multiple condoms in my pocket by the end of the day. It would have happened. Totally not an issue. The school provided them. There were little vending machines in my high school. I don't even know if they cost money. I never needed one, so I never bothered playing with it, but yeah. And to me, this is just fundamentally screwed up because the right hates it because it ends up teaching empathy. Okay? You're a boy in a locker room. Now all of a sudden there are women's products in your room, in your bathroom. And it forces you to think, why would those be there? It forces you to think of what women have to go through every day, or once a month, however you want to, phrase it. It forces you to think about other people. It teaches you empathy at some level. It forces you to. And for me, that completely tracks, right? Because the right these days is completely unempathetic to anything. Everything is pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No one cares about your situation. If your family's starving, go to hell. They don't care. So I find this insulting that they're attacking him for this. And there's somebody you should follow on Substack, Erin in the Morning. I'm a subscriber of hers. She does fantastic work. Forgive me if I'm misgendering. I never bothered. I'm terrible at this. They do great work. And they're really the only source for either pro or anti-transgender events that are going on here in the United States. They're the only one that is like constantly updating stories, like digging for all the individual state bills that are being presented everywhere to harm human beings. Again, I'm anti-harm, right? Like, what's the least harmful thing we can do? It's let people be what they want to be, what they were meant to be, what they feel they are. Like, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt anyone, right? It's this weird culture war thing. So, anyway, here's the actual clip of Trump going on his attack for Walz, and then we'll move on to the main subject.
This is a ticket that would want this country to go communist immediately, if not sooner. We want no security. Mm-hmm. We want no anything. He's very heavy into transgender. Anything transgender he thinks is great. And he's not where the country is on anything.
There's a common misconception about Martin Luther King Jr. Here in the United States, and it's intentional. It's intentional. The media and our school books, the people that write the school books, certainly are not fans of his. And even the textbooks they get, like the actual little 200-page book that they'll write about Martin Luther King Jr. that they hand out to kids that I had to read, had nothing about his actual words. A lot of his words were not in the book. It was third person, and it was talking as if they knew him. And the only speech we studied was, his most famous one, obviously. But the more I learned about the man, growing up that I had to go seek out and investigate on my own was that the media gets him entirely wrong, right? I brought this up before. Protests aren't meant to be peaceful. They're not. If you do a peaceful protest, no one gives a fuck. Okay? There is a peaceful Nazi march almost every weekend, just a little north of me in Nashville, Tennessee. Almost weekly, a truck full of Nazis. They're all wearing uniforms, masks, sunglasses, hats to make sure you can't identify them because they don't want to be identified. They have these huge flags. They chant loudly, horrific shit. And nothing bad happens. They don't damage anything. The cops don't stop them. Counter-protesters don't start shit. They do nothing. They just march the streets. Now, in their case, they do want that because they are trying to normalize themselves. They want to make it so that when a Nazi marches down the street, you do go, oh yeah, that's them. That's what they fucking do. They're crazy. Right? They don't want you to be offended anymore because it's been normalized. This is the big evil of Trumpism, is that it has normalized a lot of horrific behavior that should be in the closet. So for them, it makes sense to be completely peaceful. Martin Luther King Jr. led peaceful marches because he understood who he was really talking to. He was talking to who he hated the most, probably, the white moderate. That centrist guy who's like, I agree with your cause, but, there's a quieter, easier way that doesn't break the system. Why don't you do that? Those are the people who are like, he sat during the national anthem. So the compromise was him kneeling, and of course, what happened? They weren't happy with the kneeling. So now, if you do the national anthem at all, you have to stand there loud and proud with your hand on your heart, and you have to sing along. If you do anything else, you're a fucking traitor to the country. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. But protests are not meant to be peaceful. If you really want the protest. Because your point is not to be quiet and let everything happen. So Martin Luther King Jr. knew one thing. I'm going to do a peaceful march, and I'm going to do it at 6 p.m. Eastern Time every night. I'm going to make sure that the nightly news is on, and the cameras are rolling. And I'm going to lead a peaceful march so that when the cops come up and beat the fucking piss out of us, and sick the dogs on us, and turn their hoses on us, that white moderate does not see any black person deserving it. Because what happens right now, you remember the Black Lives Matter protests. One or two assholes break something, the entire crowd was labeled, they were instigators, they were rioters, thieves, criminals. And as soon as that becomes the narrative, whatever the cops do is fine. It's justified. Think of Gaza. Think of the Gaza protests on student campuses. The stories immediately were, they started it. They were damaging property. They were breaking things. And that's why we had to go in with our clubs and beat the fuck out of students and teachers and everything else. Like, as soon as you label that group that, it's over. Okay? Martin Luther King Jr. was so successful with his peaceful protest march idea that these days the counter-protesters don't meet you on the streets with a sign that says the opposite and yell back at you. They join your movement. They dress like you dress. They look like you like. They're chanting the same thing as you, but they also have a brick. And they throw it at a police officer, at a cop car, through a window. So that way the entire group gets labeled as violent. And then the cops are free to do whatever the hell they want. And they know the media will protect us. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Almost every single protest on a college campus this last year was peaceful. Even the police, in moments of like clarity or, when they forget to put their mask back on, will say, yeah, actually all the people we arrested who were being violent, they're not even students of the school. They're like from 20 blocks away. They were outside agitators. If you have a Black Lives Matter march, I guarantee you there will be Nazis there, and they won't be counter-protesting. They'll be marching right along with you. You won't know they're Nazis. But they'll start breaking shit, and they'll be the first one to start some shit with a cop, because their goal is to label you as the violent one. So Martin Luther King Jr., his whole genius plan, because he got out ahead of it, because he planned ahead, was we have to be peaceful because we cannot be labeled thugs or criminals or anything else, because then the white moderate will be like, well, shit, man, you shouldn't have lit that fire. The cops will leave you alone if you don't do anything, right? Because in the white moderate's world, in my world, the cops do leave me alone. I don't do anything. So of course they would leave me alone. And you have to break through that barrier. You have to get them to understand, hey, no, we were peaceful. We were marching with a permit quietly. We were talking about peace. Martin Luther King Jr. was at the head of it, and you know him because he has cultivated his image in such a way that you know if he's leading a march, he's being peaceful. It is a peaceful march. There was a time he led a march and it became violent, and he immediately quit and fucking left. He's like, I will not be a part of this. They teach that part in school. But what they don't teach you is the reason is because he knew if I keep up with this march, they're going to be able to label me violent, and every march I do from this point on will be labeled that way. Oh, well, Martin Luther King, he's that violent guy. He knew better. He knew we have to be perfect. Rosa Parks was not the first black woman to sit on a bus and give a finger to all the white men. She wasn't. She was an activist who was chosen to do that at a specific time on a specific bus to get the media attention where it needed to go. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that is an underhanded, dirty trick to do, but that's the way you have to be. Here in America, we've forgotten how to protest, how to do this correctly. So, you know, it really bummed me out yesterday when this happened.
He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Now, I don't mind that there are protesters going to anyone's rally. It doesn't bother me. And it also doesn't bother me Harris's response to it. Actually, if you watch the entire, it's a whole minute-long clip. You can find it online. I edited it just for the key part. She actually puts up with a lot. She tries to talk through it. She tries to give him a minute and is like, okay, cool. Let them do their thing. She tries to do the Obama thing where it's like, yeah, just talk. But then I think the only mistake, and it's a political mistake, it's not a personal mistake. I don't think she did anything wrong, personally. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'd get mad at him too. You're just there you're trying to have a rally. You're trying to speak your piece. You're in the middle of a speech, man. You're killing it, and these fuckwads show up and ruin it. I get it. So, and I'm not going to judge any politician for saying or doing the wrong thing in that moment or not coming across the right way. It's like, dude, you were ambushed. You didn't know these people were going to show up. You don't know their cause. You don't know their method of protest. You know nothing. So it's almost impossible to prepare for it. The best you can hope for is I think I'm going to do this. The only time I don't give a pass is if the politician's like Trump and he's like, get that guy out of there. And if he bangs his head on something on the way out, I'll cover your expenses, that kind of shit. That's the only time, no, fuck you. You're calling for violence. You are inciting violence. That's wrong. Don't fucking do that. That's the only time a politician can't do something. Otherwise, if you want to get offended and call them out, sure. If you want to be polite and be like, yeah, just whatever. If you want to sit up there, roll your eyes oh, fuck. If you want to address them. I actually think that's what she should have done, was after the first bit where she's like, okay, I'll just let them get it out of their system. And then she goes on with her speech again. And obviously, they're not quitting. So she's she turns to the camera. I think the best thing for her to do, and this is only if she heard them, because you have to understand sound doesn't travel correctly in those ways. Everyone thinks it's a two-way street. You've seen this if you watch a lot of stand-up comedy. Every now and then a heckler will say something. No one can hear what the guy is saying, and most of the time the comedian on stage can't hear them. The way amphitheaters and everything are built a certain way so that the sound goes out from whoever's speaking. It's not designed to go back, right? It just doesn't translate. So we have no idea, unless there were signs or something, and unfortunately they don't turn the camera so we can see these people. Unless they have signs or something that's very clearly legible and Harris can look right at it and be like, oh, they're protesting climate change. But assuming she knows what they're protesting, I think her proper attack should have been to address them. She's like, okay, fine. Go off the cuff. Tell whoever's running your teleprompter, okay, pause it. We'll get back. I'm going to talk to these assholes right now. Even use that tone. Like, I don't even care. Just like, you know what? I'm going to mom you. And go out with that tone of voice and just be like, okay, you want to talk about climate change? Let's talk about climate change. And just shut them down, shut them up, whatever it is. I think they were protesting Gaza. Fine. Now, I have no problem with Harris. I have no problem with the protesters protesting at Harris, whatever. And when asked, the organizer of this event was asked, why'd you protest here? Why don't you protest at Trump's thing? An acceptable answer would have been, well, Mrs. Harris is a part of this administration that can actually affect change. Trump might be president, but he currently isn't. He can't do shit in Gaza. He has no power whatsoever. So it doesn't make sense to protest somebody who can't do shit. If they had said that, okay, cool. I wouldn't even be talking about it today. I don't think I would talk about a protest like, okay, you protested Harris. Ooh, like, it doesn't interest me. But that wasn't their response. Apparently, the response was, we can't protest at Trump's rallies because Trump's rallies are not safe. We would be attacked if we went there. And that's the part that bugs me. Because I think back to Martin Luther King, the heyday of protests, and I'm like, yes, that's the fucking point. If you believe in this stuff so much, you should realize I am putting my body, potentially my life on the line. I'm going in. And if I were them, I'd be like, okay, we're going to protest, whatever. We're going to be peaceful. They are going to be on camera, possibly beating the fuck out of us. I want to make sure this story is about them being bad, not about us. Okay? I think one of the dumbest things are these idiots that go around gluing their hands to a Starbucks counter or throwing tomato soup at a priceless work of art to build awareness for their issue. Like, you're not doing anything. You're just a fucking jerk. Like, the workers at Starbucks don't control shit. The people who are there are just trying to have a cup of fucking coffee. You throwing tomato sauce at a painting, a priceless work of art, is like, neither the person who painted the thing that you threw it at, like, even knew what climate change was. They've been dead hundreds of years. You are trying to deface something that has nothing to do with anything. Like, it would at least make sense if it was a piece of art, like, of, you know, lefties being laughed at and mocked by billionaires who are like, ha ha ha, those idiots believe in climate change. Like, at least then there's a political message behind it. But just to throw it at something Michelangelo painted is like, are you fucking kidding me? What did he have to do with it? What does the art have to say about it? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. That to me is glory seeking. They just want to be on the fucking TV. They want to be on the news. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're saying. The only thing that shows up in the media after every single one of these is assholes threw paint or threw tomato sauce at priceless work of art. They don't give a fuck about your protest. They don't give a fuck who you are. It's just, look at this asshole ruined all these tourists' things. Like, they went to visit this priceless work of art, and instead they had to watch this asshole throw tomato sauce at it for whatever the fuck their reason is. Like, I guarantee you, nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's the dumbest form of protest in the world. It doesn't do shit. You don't prove anything. In fact, if the security that's there shows up and beats the ever-loving shit out of you, 99% of people who hear about your story are going to applaud the security guys. It's the dumbest fucking thing ever. Seriously. If you glue your hand to a Starbucks counter and the cops just show up and rip your fucking hand off and skin comes off and is still on the counter, no one's gonna care. You might win a lawsuit a few years later where it's like, yeah, the cops went overboard. But like in the court of public opinion, no one gives a fuck. Everyone would be like, yeah, you shouldn't have fucking glued your hand to the counter, you dumb son of a bitch. So, Like, for me, if you said, Kyle, okay, you want to protest something. You want the most eyeballs possible on you. You want the biggest story in the world to be about your protest, but not in a negative way. You do not want to be the instigator of violence. You do not want to cause any violence at all. You don't want to be the instigator. You don't want to be the person throwing the punch. You don't want to be the person starting a fire. You want to get the most eyeballs on you and the most attention. You want to make the story about the protest and about the reaction to it. I would go to a Trump rally. That is the best place to do a protest right now. You do a peaceful protest at a Trump rally, you will get eyeballs. The media will immediately forget what the fuck Harris was doing and focus 100% on your protest. And the reason your protest is going to get attention is because Trump can't stand being interrupted. That fuckwad is going to stand there, and he may very well direct the crowd to kick your ass. But it won't be because of what you did. It'll be because you showed up quietly holding a sign that says Trump is a piece of shit, fuck fascism, Trump loves billionaires, not the people. Trump is a liar. Trump is a rapist. Whatever the fuck it is you want to protest. Whatever it is. If you want to go out there and be like, Trump doesn't believe in climate change. Climate change will kill us all and he doesn't give a fuck. Like, whatever. Whatever your protest is, as long as it's something that will annoy the shit out of Donald Trump, I guarantee you that is the best place to protest. You will get attention. You will get eyeballs for at least 24 hours, which is the best you can hope for in these modern news cycles. Go ask people how effective the Trump getting shot at was. That story's dead. Nobody gives a fuck. They've already moved on. It's gone. Maybe if Biden were still running, they'd play with it a bit more, but it doesn't play now that Harris is in, so they've given up. It's done. That story's over. It's over. The guy did not succeed in whatever the fuck he wanted to do. Nobody even remembers his name. So, if you want to protest here in America today, you have to understand, if you really want it to matter, you have to go out on your shield. You got to lay it all on the line. Your body, possibly your life. Because the story isn't really about you. The story will be, this peaceful guy went to a Trump rally to protest. And he ended up in the ER, or worse. And then the story becomes, well, what the fuck did he say that caused that? Oh, he was just saying he hated fascism. Well, who would kill somebody for saying that they hate fascism? The fascists that were in attendance. And you would have cameras on Trump who would say something stupid like, yeah, get him out of here. I'll pay your legal fees. There would be cameras. There would be reaction. And even if your protest is lost in the mix after a day, the story would still be there because you still have the reaction from security. What did security do when did the fans turn on you? Did security do it? Did the Secret Service beat you senseless? Were they given the order by Trump, or is this just another in a string of fuck-ups by them? Like, the story doesn't die. The story keeps going. The best place to protest is at a Trump rally. If you're trying to really make it about your protest, if you are really, honest to God, trying to make it about the protest and not yourself. These people that protested at Harris's thing last night, it was all about them. They love the attention. They got likes. They got clicks. People are talking about them today. They love this shit. That's all they did it for. They didn't really give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. I don't care what their status is. I think it was Gaza. I have no fucking clue. I don't care. They don't care about Gaza. They don't care about anyone dying. They only care about themselves because they went to the safest possible fucking place, because Harris and Walz cannot allow violence at one of their rallies. It can't happen. They won't allow it to. Their security is on high alert to make sure no one fucking gets out of line and does something stupid. It is the safest possible place you could protest in America, is at a Harris rally. You were thinking of nothing but yourself. If you truly believe in your cause, if you really want to make it effective, you go where it will get the most eyeballs. And the most eyeballs is a Trump rally. I mean, again, if these people had come out and been like, well, we wanted to protest somebody who was actually in the administration and could possibly affect change, I'd disagree, but I'd respect that. I'd be like, well, yeah, okay, at least it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, I want to protest somebody who can actually do it. Like this is that whole, why don't, oh shit. Why doesn't anybody ask Trump what he would do about Gaza? And this was like back on, early October. Why doesn't anybody ask Trump? And it's like, who the fuck would ask Trump what to do? He's not in power. He can't do anything. Like, nobody gives a fuck what he'd say about it. Biden does. You ask him. Like, there is a sense to that, but they didn't say that. They said we purposefully came here because we knew we'd be safe. We're not going to a Trump rally because we might get the fuck beat out of us. And it's like, you're missing the whole point of the protest. This country was not founded on peaceful protest. This country was founded on goddamn revolution. And nothing has ever changed because of peaceful protest. Things changed because the reaction to them. If Martin Luther King Jr. marched a bunch of peaceful black people through the streets of America, nothing would have changed. If that would have been the end of the story, nothing would have changed. No laws would have been passed. No minds would have been changed. Everyone would look at the black people marching for civil rights down the street the same way a lot of people in Nashville, Tennessee look at Nazis. Oh, yeah, that's them. That's what they do. They march. The point of the protest is not the protest. It is the reaction to it. You want your protest to matter? You gotta lay it on the line. There are two types of protests. There's a protest where you network. This is the one you see. It's usually crowdsourced. Somebody on social media, hey, everybody, we got a permit at this time and date. We're going to be at this street. Come protest. And that one might be peaceful to do nothing. But that one, again, the point is get a bunch of people there, spread phone numbers around. Hey, this is me on social media. Follow this group. Get everything. Organize, network. That's that kind of protest. There are plenty of those. That's fine. That's not what this was. This was an organized event that actually wanted to bring attention to their cause, and the only thing anybody's talking about is Harris's demeanor during it. Like, but it's going to go away in a day. Like, nobody thinks this is going to go... Again, a motherfucker was shot at, and no one's talking about it now. Harris could have fucking dropped expletives and told them to fuck right off to their faces. The media is going to forget about this story in about 24 to 48 hours. It's going to move on. They're going to have another rally. There's not going to be a protest at it. It's going to be over. This was the dumbest fucking thing I've seen. And the worst response possible. Oh, we did it because we'd be safe. Fuck your safety. Do you care about this shit or not? Like, seriously, if you care about this shit, you should be willing to go out for it. How do you think we got the 40-hour work week? People were fucking beaten to death over it. How do you think we got weekends? People were fucking beaten to death over it. People were beaten to death for not wanting their kids to go to the fucking mines. None of this shit happened because of peaceful marches. Nothing changed over a peaceful march. Your peaceful march is bullshit. Your safety is bullshit. If you really want to affect change, you need to put it on the line. Some people might be like, oh, Kyle, well, why don't you do that? Hey, I don't feel that fucking strongly about it. I don't. My job is here. This is how I affect change. Do I? I have a circulation of about 5, 10 on a good day. But Americans, we do not know how to protest anymore. We don't. Some of it's by design. Again, these history books have been edited for clarity, to let you know what they want Martin Luther King Jr. to be about. What he was about was peace. He wasn't violent. He didn't break anything. Peace. That's what they want. They want us all to be peaceful. Of course they want a peaceful protest. Right? Of course they do. Especially when they're in power. Biden loves it. You know who wants a violent protest right now? Trump, because he's not in power. But if you look back 4 years ago, when there were violent protests happening, oh, he fucking hated them. He couldn't believe them. He sent the cops out in a heartbeat. And whoever's in power is going to react that way. So it's not like I'm saying Harris would be any better. If she's in power and there's a violent protest, yeah, I expect the cops to show up in a show of force. But Americans, man, we need to get better about our protest. Again, do you believe in this shit or not? If it matters that fucking much to you, go do something about it. But I'm not going to celebrate somebody who goes to the safest goddamn building in the world, a Harris rally, to protest. I'm going to celebrate, oh yeah, good job, you brought awareness, you interrupted the vice president of the United States. Like, what happened to you? What's the worst that could happen to you doing that? You get escorted off the premises? Some people on social media cuss you out like I'm probably going to do after this? Like, it's nothing. You're a joke. You are a joke. That's all you are. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next time.